Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. I'm Nancy Reed McKee, the ministerial intern for the coming year. This congregation is also served by Reverend Natalie Fenimore and Reverend Ned White, both away from the pulpit this week, and Reverend Jennifer Brower, who is currently on sabbatical until February. With me today is Julie Burkhart, founder and CEO of the Trust Woman Foundation, one of the groups that has received a large grant from this congregation. The money from Shelter Rock helps to fund their clinic system project that works to open clinics in states with low access to abortion services and to create a network of physicians dedicated to providing abortion care as part of reproductive health care. I'm particularly honored to welcome Ms. Burkhart because prior to entering seminary, I was a women's health specialist and a reproductive justice advocate serving in rural areas in northern Arizona where abortion access has been virtually eliminated. So this is a healthcare issue that's dear to my heart. I would like to call your attention to the announcements in the order of service, but I'm going to highlight a few. The first is that today, as part of the UU Cafe, the sixth graders are holding a sandwich sale to fund their Secret Service project. So please make sure you buy sandwiches at the UU Cafe today. I also want to thank everyone for an excellent day yesterday. I started off doing the beach trip down to the program in, I'm not going to say it right, Bushwick, I believe. And it was an incredibly enlightening program and very well coordinated. And I finished the evening off here at the Cabaret, which was 27 pieces of music and dance that were just exceptional. So I want to thank everyone who participated and congratulate you on a successful day. Tomorrow night, the Shelter Rock Forum is hosting Richard Reeves. He is a senior fellow of the Brookings Institute and author of Dream Hoarders, How the American Upper Middle Class is Leaving Everyone Else in the Dust, Why That Is a Problem, and What to Do About It. That will be at 7:30 tomorrow evening. And I also want to call attention to a couple other events. There is a suicide prevention presentation today at 1 o'clock in this room. And next week, there's going to be a program on music and memory, talking about the role of dementia prevention with music. Just to let you know, Reverend Ned White is still at home, and he'll be at home most of this coming week. For those who don't know, he was recently hospitalized, but he is recovering well. And he asked, in lieu of calls or visits, please send him cards or chocolates, I guess, or other ways that you can express your appreciation and concern. Let's take a moment now to greet your neighbors. From the loneliness of troubled times, we come to discover that we are not alone. Into the dwelling place of togetherness, we come to collect remnants of hope. From fear that all is lost, we come to discover what will save us. Into the comfort of each other's arms, we come to feel the strength that has not yet vanished. From darkness we come to wait until our eyes begin to see. Into the refuge of fading dreams, we come to remove illusions and focus new visions. From despair that walks alone, we come to travel together. Into the dwelling place of generations, we come to pledge allegiance to being peace and doing justice. May the flame here lit be to us a symbol of the torch that is passed from hand to hand and life to life, of caring and concern and the passion for involvement, which have marked the men and women of our liberal faith for many generations. I've added an additional candle next to our chalice today, lit in remembrance of those who are hurt or killed this past week in the car attack in Manhattan. Please take a few breaths together as we hold the victims, families, and survivors in our hearts and in our prayers. Please rise, if you're willing and able, and share in singing hymn number 1008 in the teal-colored hymnal. We'll follow this with reciting our words and song of affirmation. We will begin with hymn 1008.
Praise, when our heart is in a
Love is the doctrine of this congregation, the quest of truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, this do we affirm and covenant with each other. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather here to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gifts of the congregation will most gratefully be received in the offering this morning. early September, I stopped to watch my neighbor at work repairing a stone wall that lines the road perpendicular to ours. Built as all the old field walls of our region have been built, the stones are held by balance and a judicious choice rather than by mortar. The wall was built well, but the weight of many decades had broken it here and there, with some stones fallen out of place or carried away for some other use. As I warm myself in the autumn sun and watch him work, I see that about half of what he does is simply look at the stones in their haphazard piles, stroking his chin in thought. Then from time to time, he rolls one from the pile onto the ground and turns it from side to side, pondering, or he walks back to study again the place in the wall that he's trying to mend. When he finally makes his choice, he's sure. Each stone waits for the right opening, the place where its particular heft and shape fit as though cradled. Once in a while, it is no longer merely a stone, but an essential piece of the wall, part of a larger thing taking shape as naturally as a tree flows from root to trunk to branch. My neighbor is an ordinary working man. I know his name, and sometimes we talk together about life and horses and his willingness to help me haul manure to my garden one of these days before the first hard frost. But on this sunny September afternoon, as I watch his eyes and hands become familiar with each stone and then lift it into shape the wall, it's easy to imagine God at work in the immense universe, quietly humming, pulling our lives together into something stronger and more useful. I don't mean we're mute and helpless, waiting passively for the great stone master to lift and move our lives or tell us where we belong. I mean only that there is a place for us, that our gifts, the shape of our minds and our talents, the angles of our interest and concern, fit the needs of the world the way my neighbor's stones anchor themselves into the lengthening wall. I mean that the world's possibilities shift and change each time we put ourselves into building something larger and strong and beautiful. Whether or not we find room in our theologies for the word God, the world itself calls us to imagine ourselves essential in this engaged holiness, bringing forth what is ours to give of creation and strength toward mending the broken world. This is a time in our service we invite any of you to come forward to light candles of concern and celebration, to mark your sorrows and your joys. Please notice we have 2 candle boxes. I invite you to come forward now to whichever candle box is most convenient for you.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here with you today, and I want to thank Ned White and Nancy Reed McKee and all of the congregation for inviting me. It's an honor. Today, I want to share with you the path of trust women and the critical life-saving work that we do, especially in some of the most politically hostile areas in our country. I also want to share with you and have some time to reflect upon how UU principles intersect with women's rights and human rights, and how those principles and values are put into practice. I'd also like to discuss with you some political trends that seem to be the new normal since the 2016 election and how that affects us. First, though, I wanted to take an opportunity to share with you part of my upbringing, which helped to shape my values, ideas, and principles. I was fortunate enough to be raised by very independent, strong-minded women in northern Oklahoma. I come from an agricultural family, where, as an ag family, there's a division of labor and it's valued. I credit this early understanding of fairness, equality, and my mother's and my grandmother's feminist values, although some of them might not have used the word feminist, to my early understanding of and passion for equal rights for all people. What further helped in developing my worldview was the religious conversion of my mother and my uncle to Unitarianism. They wanted to be part of a religious movement that was not afraid to explore and to ask tough questions. So I had the great fortune of beginning to attend a Unitarian Universalist church when I was in 6th grade. The Unitarian faith instilled in me the intrinsic link between social justice movements and broader, more inclusive religious thought. That is, Unitarianism clearly revealed to me the need for more inclusive social justice work. Unitarianism also helped me to further understand the interconnectedness of all people, animals, the land, and the universe in which we live. It taught me that one reaction can potentially cause a chain reaction of events in the lives of others, which in turn can affect the world. We most clearly do not operate in silos. Being exposed to a liberal religious faith further fueled my desire to contribute to the betterment of our world. This helped to propel me into political activism and women's rights work, which dated back to my college days, where I just by chance got a summer job at a women's health clinic. And as you can tell, my commitment to the work that I do and to the movement runs very deep. Now I want you to please fast forward to 2009. It was a beautiful Sunday. It was May 31st. I was in Washington, D.C. that day for a meeting. My phone began to buzz incessantly right before we were going on break for lunch. People were desperately trying to reach me. People were trying to reach me because my boss and mentor, Dr. George Tiller, had just been assassinated in his church. I will never forget that day. How crisp the air was, how clear and sunny the sky was. The morning when we were on a break that morning, we were out sauntering around this fair. And the colors were just bursting with color. The flowers were bursting with color, and there were tons of fresh fruits and vegetables. That morning, I felt a calm and a joy and a peace. But I can say that once my phone started ringing, my world and the world of many people, it came crashing down. And I can't tell you how much I still miss Dr. Tiller. I'm grateful for the work that I did for him for 7 years, and I'm grateful that he was able to impart so much wisdom before he was taken from our lives. He loved idioms, and he had pieces of paper literally all over his office, the little scrap paper just pinned up all over his office with all these sayings, and I wanted to share a few with you. One was, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And this is my favorite. When the going gets tough, the tough go to Dairy Queen. Yes, it's very important. His sayings and wisdom were imparted to many, which certainly helped me and many others grow personally and professionally. I founded Trust Women in July 2009 because I had friends and colleagues who encouraged me to do so. And I'm grateful that they helped me to separate from my grief just long enough to found this organization. Trust Women was born out of tragedy, but out of so much sorrow has come monumental love, compassion, and justice. I never imagined that out of so much sadness would emerge an organization that would provide care and touch the lives literally of thousands of women and people from all walks of life. Ned White said to me a few years ago that Trust Women was a phoenix rising out of the ashes. His words were so true. After all, in the wake of Dr. Tiller's death, Trust Women was born. Our mission at the time was to immediately reestablish reproductive health care in Wichita, Kansas, which was daunting to say the least. People were afraid that if doctors began providing abortion care again in Wichita, that we would be inviting violence back into the community, like the assassination of Dr. Tiller. Folks were afraid for me and my staff, and physicians were afraid and considering working in that part of the Midwest. It took 4 years to reopen the clinic in Wichita. It was a labor of love by many, and it was a welcome day once we could see our first patient. So this last April, we celebrated our 4-year anniversary of opening in Wichita. Then, just 1.5 years after opening there, Oklahoma City lost its sole provider. And so then I went about figuring out how to establish reproductive health care in Oklahoma City. Just as Wichita had been, Oklahoma City then was the largest metropolitan area in the United States without an abortion provider. It took us 2.5 years in Oklahoma City to open that clinic. And once again, it was a labor of love by many dedicated people. And just this past September 10th, we celebrated our 1-year anniversary in Oklahoma City. And we're quite proud now to be able to serve people in that region. I want to share with you a couple of stories that patients have left in the many journals that we have in our clinics. We leave them kind of all over the clinic for people to pick up and doodle in and write in. Thank you for making this possible for me. I have just finished nursing school and am beginning my hard, sought-after career, and your generous gift has made it possible for me to realize my dreams. I will never forget the second chance you gave me today. And the second person, I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. After having that emotional conversation with you over the phone, I realized I made the right decision. As a single mother raising a 6-month-old on my own, I knew having another so soon wasn't for me. I am a United States Marine Corps combat veteran, and that itself is hard enough. Without you and your fund, I would have given up hope. I cannot express how grateful I am. I will never forget that phone call, and you just knew. Just knowing someone was there to tell me they loved me and everything would be okay just gave me so much motivation. I can live a happy life and wait for the right time to have another baby. I'm so glad you understand. Thank you so much. God bless. We literally get notes, letters, cards like this every day from people who have sought our services. The work of making abortions available for women who need them is critically important in the fight for people to be truly free. We are not truly free unless we are able to control our own fertility, which means deciding when and whether to have a child. All people deserve autonomy over their own bodies. When we achieve that, we are one step closer to true freedom for all people. I want to give you a sense of what women must go through in order to access services from the center of the country where we work in Kansas and Oklahoma. If you are a minor in Kansas, you must have the consent of both parents, and if not, you must go through the judicial bypass process. In Oklahoma, it must be one parent. In Oklahoma, for all patients, we have a 72-hour waiting period, which oftentimes translates into a 5 to 7 day wait because of physician availability. In Kansas, the waiting period is 24 hours. And then in Kansas, after you've waited for 24 hours, after you meet the doctor in private when you come in, you must wait another 30 minutes. In both of these states, if you have private insurance or Medicaid, you cannot have your abortion care covered, unless if you have private insurance, you have purchased a rider in advance of becoming pregnant so that you may then have an abortion. 33% of all of our clients need some sort of funding. And lastly, in Kansas, if you're coming in for a 2-day procedure, we have a law there that says the physician who begins the procedure must complete the procedure. So if you're a physician and you become ill or there's an emergency, we would be forced to break the law in order to make sure you had a safe procedure in our facility. So these are just some of the hurdles that women and physicians and our staff are faced with on a daily basis. We fight these battles and we focus on the state level. But I was absolutely beside myself when it was clear that Donald Trump was going to be our next president. The day after the election, many women called our offices. They were terrified. They were asking if abortion were still legal, and they asked if they could still come in for their appointments. This was absolutely heart-wrenching. And we saw the tone of fear that the next presidency would bring. I think it's safe to say that we were all shocked and scared by the outcome of the 2016 election. I know that I felt like I lost my country, and I was wondering what would come of our ability to deliver quality health care. I was beside myself with fear. I sobbed with my staff, my advisors, and my family. But it also, once again, further solidified my commitment to equality. We are all scared of what may come with this administration, but I know, and you know, that this is no time to sit on the sidelines. What has been unleashed within this country is unsettling at best, but we must continue to live by the principles in which we operate, and we must continue to shape social progress. We can't allow emboldened racism, intolerance, and hatred to become normalized in this country. We must stand together in defiance of those who want to erase all we have achieved in order to advance social justice. We must persevere now more than ever, which is an engraved belief in Unitarianism. This moment is critical in time. Just recently, the Trump administration was embroiled in a case regarding a young immigrant woman who's also a minor, and this was the case in Texas that I'm sure you all read about. The administration took every possible measure to prevent her from having an abortion. They believed that it was their right to force this young girl to give birth and to have a baby. Thankfully, the court handed down a directive that enabled the minor to obtain abortion services in Texas. It is our duty to fight back against the hands that work to oppress us. We must protect not just this young woman, but all women and people across this country who are facing the elimination of their right to make choices about their own bodies. One important Unitarian lesson that I carry from childhood is that everyone has the right to seek and to find their own truth and meaning for themselves. That means the right to make choices about their health, bodies, and lives, independent from coercion by others. That's what we must protect when days are grim, and that's what Trust Women strives to do every day. I want to thank you all so much for letting me speak here today, and I want to ask you to stand with us in the belief that we must find our own individual truths, which means protecting and advancing freedom for all people. Thank you.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 1028 in the Teal hymnal. That's 1028, The Fire of Commitment. seated. Take a moment to breathe into the silence. Our breath is always with us. We can always come back to the breath, our anchor, our grounding, our freedom. Spirit of love and life. We are here not just minds and hearts, but bodies too. We are human beings, spirit and body joined together. On this day, we send out a prayer or a wish that every person, every being may be safe and well in body and spirit. May every person be well, and may we treat every person with respect and kindness and love. On this day, when we consider the connections between our bodies and our spirits, we lift up our hope and aspiration that all people will live in freedom to give and guard their bodies as best seems to them, and to exercise their own powers of moral discernment around their fertility and creative potential. May we remember that it is especially challenging for those who are living in poverty to exercise these rights, and may our society support them in every way possible. We say a special prayer for all those who have experienced violence or abuse or any other form of damage to their being, which is so precious. May they know safety and healing. For all of us, may our physical being be a source of delight and well-being as we live in this world. May every being be safe and well in body and in spirit. May every person be well, and may we be vessels of compassion for everyone we meet. Blessed be, and amen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment, which it here symbolizes. We carry these in our hearts until we come together again.